Hi. So today's session, we're going to continue building this app and extending some of the capabilities of it. I figured yesterday that, I figured in the last session, we covered quite a lot, but there's still definitely more that we could do, particularly around this screen. Now, one of the things I thought would be nice is that, we've got this, this profile card here that sort of shows more information around the champion, but it only shows information from their About Me property in their profile, and not everybody has that. So one of the things I thought we could do today is look at extending the Power Virtual Agent to ask to ask the champ when they're registering to provide a bit of information about themselves. That way we'll always have some kind of content to display here. So what we'll do is we'll use the About Me data if it exists, and if it doesn't exist, we'll use the data that we captured during the registration. So that's the first thing. The second thing is this page. So when the app launches, this card is visible, and unfortunately, it's completely empty. So what I would prefer to do is hide it until somebody selects a profile and then it displays. So we need to add in some kind of toggle on the visibility of this whole card, and obviously if it isn't visible, then we have a lot more screen that we could potentially use to show profiles, because it's fine at the moment. You can see this is fine, we only have 4 champions, but if you imagine your organization might have hundreds, then this isn't going to work really well. I think the other thing we could possibly do is to build in search. So you could search for somebody if you knew their name, which is quite possible. And then as a final piece of functionality, it would be nice to be able to contact or send a message to a champion, right? And I was thinking we could do that using adaptive cards as one of the things that I really enjoy using at the moment. So first things first, you can see our gallery here needs some tidying up. I haven't done anything around accessibility. I haven't done anything around naming conventions. So I'm going to quickly spend just a couple of seconds to do that. So department, office, and role. So hang in with me. And then we have that's their name. And then I think the images were basically easy enough to do. Selected. Now remember why this naming convention is important. It's because I may not touch this app for several months, and when I come back to it to update it, I don't really want to be looking at this tree view and not having any idea as to what these various components on the screen are. So it's making my life easy. And also, if I handed this app over to somebody else, it's going to make their life easier. They can understand what's doing. Body, and then the gallery, we'll just rename that to be gal selected champ. Sorry. Okay, excellent. So that's good enough, and that's a typo there. So gal. Okay, so what we're going to do to start with is we're going to toggle the visibility of this gallery. Now what we can do is we can add in an icon to close the screen. So let's do that for a start. Let's change the color to white so that we can see it. I'll pop it up here, zoom in a bit so you can see exactly what we're trying to achieve. And let's use the use that icon. Now what we'll do is we're going to use a context variable. Now context variables, as I think I mentioned in one of the previous videos, are bound by default. They're bound to this screen, so they're variables that are only really of use to me on this screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that when this screen loads, when the screen is visible, this is the only screen in our app, so as it loads, we're going to create a variable, an update context variable called LOC because it's local, and I'm going to say selected, and this is what we're going to call the variable, selected champ visibility, and I'm going to set that to be false. So as the screen loads, as the screen is visible, I'm going to set that variable to be false. Now to test it, I'm going to need to add in another screen. So when I click on, as I toggle between these screens, that screen is now visible, and if we view the variable, you can see that it's set to false. Okie dokie. So what we need to do on this button, so as we select the user, we are capturing the user's profile. That's the first thing. And then what we're going to do is set the visibility to be true. Hopefully you can see where I'm going with this. We're going to set, so when the user clicks the close button, we're going to set that variable to be false. This will all make sense in a couple of minutes with luck. Right, let's preview this. So the visibility of the entire gallery, instead of it being set to true, it's going to be set to that variable. So if we select somebody, that has now made that visible. That's making it hidden. There we are, look. So now we're able to toggle or control the the tile. The next thing we want to do, the next thing I want to do, sorry, is manage the screen space. So at the moment, when this is hidden, we've got this whole side of the app that's completely unused, right? And it's not really of any use. And all this time, we're having to, squeeze in the profiles, which at the minute, it's absolutely fine. But as we add more profiles, it's going to get messy. So let's stop previewing and zoom out a little bit. So the width of this gallery is currently set to 683 pixels. So let's capture that because that will be useful for knowing what we want. So let's minimize 683. So let's change the width now to 1264. That uses pretty much, let's just go the full width of the page, 1366. So we can just say the full width, right? So maximized. So that'll be parent.width. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Now the one thing, so we can now use the full width of the screen, but the thing we need to increase is the wrap count because we've got room for another 3 tiles there easily, right? So if I change that to 6, you can now see that we will be able to use the full width of the screen. So as the app loads, as the screen loads, we'll be able to use this whole screen area. And what we'll do is when we select a user, we'll change the width or the width and the wrap count of the gallery, and I hope that makes sense to you. So at the minute, when the gallery is using the full width of the screen, we will have the wrap count set to 6. When a user clicks this button, we'll change the wrap count back down to 3, and we'll also change the width of the gallery down to 683 pixels. Okay, now to do that, we're going to use more context variables. So as the screen loads, we're going to be maximized, right? So what we'll do here is local champ gallery width. We'll say parent. I don't know if it's going to allow us to do that. Dot width. No. Okay, so we know that's 1366 pixels, right? We'll have to do that. And we're also going to say LOC champ gallery wrap count to be 6. So when the page loads, when the screen loads, this gallery is going to use the full width of the screen, and the wrap count will be set to 6. So we'll be able to have 6 profiles per row or per line. Okay, so those are the 2 variables that we've set when the screen loads. So let's flip between screens and take a look at the variable. So we have wrap count should be 6 and width is 1366. Let's select our gallery. So the width is currently set to 1366, but what we're going to do is set that to local gallery width. The second property we need to change is the wrap count. That's currently set to 6, which is right. And we're going to set that to be the wrap count. Now, when we want this to change is when somebody selects, this is when we're going to we're going to minimize the width of the gallery, and we're also going to change the wrap count. And we're going to make the selected champs card visible. So what we're going to do here is say the champ gallery width, excuse me, that will be 683 pixels, which we know was the previous width. Stay with me. And the next thing that we're going to change is the wrap count. Now we know that that needs to be set to 3. Okay, so when that button's clicked, we should see the wrap count change to 3 and the width change to 683. The selected champ card will become visible. So what we need to do is when the champs card is closed, we need to set this back to the original setting. So let's preview it. And with some luck, let's change it to the canvas size. Let's select nesters. Okay, that's worked nicely, right? So we know, let's close the preview. The gallery has changed to 683 pixels. The wrap count has changed, and nesters profile is visible, although we do need to work on the alignment somewhat. Now, when we close the profile, we need to set those 2 context variables back to whatever they were before. So the width is going to be 1366, and the wrap count is going to be 6. All right. So that's when the close button is clicked. Now, for some reason, oh no, it's just there. Okay, so let's close the profile, and we're back to what we were. Let's try pretty. There we go. So now our screen, we've got this toggle ability where the card takes up half of the screen, and you can still see the other champs. Wonderful. So that's taken care of the first requirement, which was to build in some capability to toggle between the view, the full view, and the half width view. What we'll quickly do is make sure, so accessibility, remember the tab index. So icons will be invisible to screen readers unless you change the tab index. So at the moment, this, you wouldn't be able to close this profile, which is obviously not ideal. So we change that to 1. And we also want to ensure the accessible label is obvious. So this closes the selected profile. Okay, so save that. So that's good. We've done some good work on the app. The next thing we're going to do is go back into Power Virtual Agents and do a little bit more work on our bot. One of the things I'm keen for us to do is capture additional information, and we want some bio information. Okay, I think that's the important part. So actually, before we do the bot, we're going to need to extend our table, and we're also going to need to change our flow. So let's go back. Let's go back a step. Sorry, before we get too carried away. So let's go into our champions community. Here is our table. So we're going to add in a column here. We're going to need to capture the bio. So let's call this champ bio. Now let's think about this. 100 characters is definitely not going to be enough. Let's change that to 2000. That's probably enough, isn't it, for a biography or description of who you are. So we've saved the table. So the table now has the column where we can put the data. The next thing we're going to do is update our flow. So here's our new champion registration flow that we built back in the I think the first session. So we're going to update this to write some data into the table. So here's our champ bio. So you can see we've got the column just there. So we're going to ask for another input. That's going to be champ bio. And then, and if you remember, this data here is what we capture in Power Virtual Agents and we pass to the flow. So this will enable us to ask for the champion's bio, which we can see we've got now available to us here, and it will write that into our data first table. Now obviously we'll test it, because I think on my profile I don't have any about me information, so that works nicely. Okay, so now we can go back to Power Virtual Agents. We can open our chatbot. And one of the things we need to do is, firstly, we need to add in a question. And the question is going to ask for the bio information. The second thing we'll need to do is remove the call on action step where we're calling our flow and re-add it in, because we've added in some additional requirements. So if we go to our topics, and remember topics are kind of segments of a conversation, we have our champion registration topic, which is the one that we put together ourselves. So if we go into the authoring canvas and I close that so we've got a bit more room, we should be able to see right. Okay, so where will we put this in? So the first one is Teams. So that's the technology. So it's not the last question anymore. That's now the next question. What kind of assistance can you offer? So we want to add in a step here. We're going to ask a question. Right, so this is the final question. So we'll say, finally, please can you provide a bio for your profile? Well, actually, it's not. We're asking them just to do it. Say, please provide a bio for your profile. This is going to be the users. So when we, when we're asking the question, this isn't a multiple choice. we're just going to capture the entire response, okay? So it's just the entire string. And then what we're going to do is store that in a variable called champ bio. Next, we need to delete that and then add in that action again. Now you can see we've got the bio information, but we also, unfortunately, now have a couple of orphaned steps, which we can recreate. It's not the end of the world, but something to consider. So the user's ID we already know. That's because they're using the bot. That's a bot-wide variable. The technology we asked them in a question previously, or they selected, sorry, the type of assistance we've captured. Now we capture the bio, and the last thing we really need to do is just remove these. And we can say add a condition. Now, if you remember, our flow returns a value of 1 or 0, and that was called the return value. So if it was 1, then we know that everything went well, and we can say goodbye. So let's say goodbye, because they finished, right? If it's not 1, the only other thing it could be was 0, then we can simply say there was an error and there was a confirmed failure topic. Okay, let's save it. The next thing I need is some text, some bio text. So I'm going to use Word for that just very quickly, because I'm not going to sit here and type a bio. That will be long and trick. There we go. So that will be my bio information. Okay, let's give it a test. And if this works, we'll publish it again. So we're going to say hi, and remember, hi is a term that will be picked up as a trigger phrase for our greeting topic. So the greeting topic is running. In fact, if we toggle that to be on, we should follow the conversation through the topics. So yes, I want to register as a champion. Here we go. We want to see which technology. I'll be a Teams person again, and I'll give email assistance. Please provide a bio. This is where I can paste in my text. Now, with some luck, the flow is running and a record is being created in Dataverse. Oh, okay, helps if you click enter. Okay, so that was, by the look of it, successful. So let's quickly go back to Power Apps and have a look, see if it worked or not. One quick way to do it is just to check the Dataverse table. So here's our table. If we go to Edit Data, and assuming this worked, we'll see there's some bio information. There we go. So that's the profile I've just created, and we've got the bio information. So we can go back into our app now and put in a check. So what we're going to say when the app opens, for the selected champion's profile card, we're going to use the About Me text. And if the About Me text is blank, oh, I've got two profiles now, don't know which one it is. We're going to say if the selected profile is blank, the About Me data is blank, then we'll show the bio from Dataverse. So I'm missing Office, and I'm most definitely missing the About Me text. You can see in there it's completely blank. So what we'll do is we'll say if, so we're going to do an if statement, so we're going to do a check. So we're going to check to see if it's blank. That's going to be this item dot about me. So if that's blank, then we're going to show this item this is where we need to be a little bit smart, because we need to look up the champ's profile in Dataverse. So we're going to need to look up in Dataverse, that's our table. We're going to say this item dot name. Now remember the name is the GUID. Sorry, this item dot ID equals name, and what we want then is the champ bio, and if not, we'll do this item dot about me, and I'll talk you through this in a sec if it works. So let's preview it. If it works, I'll talk you through it. If it doesn't, we'll try again. And it doesn't look like it's working, does it? Oh no, that is. It might be that I'm selecting the wrong profile. Let's have a little look. It all seems to be right. Oh, yeah, it's a record. I wonder if we put in, this sometimes works. Take the first record. No, it doesn't like that at all. Okay. Interesting. Okay, I've got a feeling this might bog me down for a few minutes, so I'm just going to pause the video and then I will restart the recording in a minute. Okay, we're back. So sorry for the short pause there. I thought I'd run into a few issues with the query that I was writing, but actually the code here was correct. The problem that I had was that I have multiple profiles in the champions table. It was selecting the first one that matched, and unfortunately that one wasn't the one that had the champ bio information. So what I did, I went back into Dataverse and I tidied up all of the data so that I've only got one profile now. Then I've come back into the app. This is working nicely, so I can walk you through this code now. So what we're doing, and remember this is for the champ's bio information. So what we're doing here is we're saying if the, predominantly we're going to be using the about me data that we get from Office 365. Now where somebody hasn't completed that, and that might be true much of the time, what we're going to do is use the information that they gave us when they registered as a champion. So what I'm doing there is I'm using the lookup function, and that will return a single row or a single record, sorry. I'm using the champions table, and I'm saying where the name, so that's the GUID of the user, is equal to this item, which is the selected user, and we're using their ID, which is that same GUID. And then from the response, or what's returned, we're pulling in the champ bio column. Yeah. However, if they do have information in their about me text, then we will use that. All right. So that works nicely. Then I forgot to record, so bit of a mistake there. But I essentially made a couple of little changes to the UI so that I could fit in this champ bio, header. So what we're going to do is make that semi-bold. We're going to put a bit of padding on the left and right here, just to center that off. Center it. Then I think largely we're done with the bio of a champ, right? Excuse me. Okay, so let's preview that. Okay, so now we've got this nice toggle where we can flick between the full width and the selected user. So here, look, this person has this account. Sorry, so Pradeep has about me information, and I don't. So it's using my lorem ipsum data, which is wonderful. Now, what would be really cool is if we could send or contact that particular champ. Now, we've got a lot of room on our tile here. So what I'm thinking is we could split this form, split this and make it into a form. So on the right hand side here, we could actually reach out and connect to this champ, right? So that's what we're going to do next. So pretty simply, what we'll do is make that half the width of the tile. Now, one way to do that accurately is to use the background. So we know we have the header and the body, which are these two tiles here. We have the width of that, and we'll just divide that by 2. So what that would look like is if we go to the width property, we can say img selected user body background divide by 2. Whoops, sorry, dot width divide by 2. There we go. So that's now taking exactly half of the screen. And we have auto height there, so that should work quite nicely. I think it's probably worth selecting a couple of profiles to make sure that's true. Yeah, brilliant. So now we've got this side of the card where we can actually, take some information and send the champ a message. So let's do that. Let's put in a drop down. Now, I figured we could use a drop down because that allows us to say what do you want to reach out about. Where is the list box, isn't it? There's a drop down control on. I'm losing my mind. Combo box. Whoops. I just added that up there, yeah. Just delete that. Okay, so I'm having a bit of a moment here. Just bear with me. Right, we're adding the combo box. Okay. Let's make that. And what we'll do is we'll copy that. We'll put here contact champ. Okay, so the items, let's say, so here we're not going to actually wire it up to one of our data sources, and we're just going to give a couple of options. Email assistance and hands on assistance. So this could be the case, if you think about this, potentially we if we're maybe in yet another session, maybe we'll make sure that if the user, so if this champ is happy to help over email, then then we'll show this. But that's not what I'm expecting to see at all. What have I done here? Data. Do I need to wire this up to data then? CMO systems. That should work. Let's see. That is weird. Okay, I'm pausing the video for a minute. I've not seen this issue before, so rather than waste our time and use space out, I'll come back in a minute. Okay, we're back again. So essentially, I think what happened there. So I've currently used, if you remember, with this as we did with this filter, I used the distinct function. So what I've put in there is I've used the distinct function to go to the database table and pull back all of the distinct rows of the assistance type and wired that up to result. Then in the control, I added a field for the result. Okay, so now what we're seeing, instead of it being a number, we can see the kinds of assistance that you could connect about. So it might be you have a question, or you want to invite them to an Ask the Expert session, you want to ask them for hands-on assistance or email assistance. So what we'll do is we'll save that in a second, and we'll give ourselves a little bit of room, because what we'll do is add in a label. I think this shouldn't take too long, actually. So the text will be assistance required. If I type that correctly. So that's fine, and then we'll put in, let's put in a text box to, text input. Pen input, text box. This can be the message that they're going to send. It's going to be multiple lines, and let's make it so its height is 34. Let's make it 100 pixels. That's probably enough. Copy this. Please provide some information about your request. Let's make that. Okay, and then we'll drop in a button, to send. So let's send. Okay, good. This is starting to take shape. A little bit slow there, and that's a little bit. We could tidy that up just really quickly by probably moving all of this up. That's in line with that. Okay, so that's not looking too bad, right? Our app is starting to look pretty good. Okay, so we'll save that, and we're going to go off and then make a flow, and the flow will send this person an adaptive card with that message. Okay, I'm not going to use email, I'm going to use an adaptive card, just because I think they're a nice way of communicating with people. So let's save our app. We'll publish it so that the latest version is there for all of the users in our Champions network. Okay, let's go. Right, so now we're going to head over to back to our home screen, and when it's ready, we're going to go into Champions Community, and we'll go to see all, and then we're going to write a flow. So we're going to create a instant flow, I think is the right way to do it. So what we want to do is send, we're going to send a flow from Power Apps, right? We're going to, send a flow, trigger a flow from Power Apps, and the flow is going to send notification. So no additional steps are required. I think they can be if we add in the Power Apps v2, but let's leave it like this for now. So send champ assistance request. Okay, let's call it that. Right, the next thing we're going to do is go to design our adaptive cards. Now, if you've ever come across, if you've never used adaptive cards, they are, they are really, really great at sharing a great way of communicating with people. If you go to this, to the website adaptivecards.io/designer, I'll pop that in our notepad file here. If you go to this URL, you will be greeted with this screen, and this screen is a designer for adaptive cards. You can apply, or you can see exactly what your adaptive card is going to look like in a particular channel. So when it's sent to Teams, when it's sent to Cortana, when it's sent through Windows Timeline, for example. Now we're using Teams, so this is what our adaptive card is going to look like. So this is the preview. The bottom left-hand corner is the JSON payload that you're going to create, and that's what we need when we've designed the card. And then we have some sample data in this editor down here, which we're just going to delete because we're going to add in our own. And then you can see an overarching view of the card structure, so you can see all of the elements on this card and what the elements are bound to, what properties are they bound to. So we're going to do a new card, and we're going to start from blank, right? Now our data editor, so we're going to put in there, and this is just simple key value stuff, key value pairs. So we're going to have the assistance type, and this is just dummy data so we can wire it up. So let's do email assistance. You'd probably just email the person, wouldn't you? If you, maybe we tie that up. The help required. I need some assistance with querying data. Then we're going to have the sender, a requester, Steve, me, the send date maybe. Whoops. The 26th August already, crikey. 2021. Okay, so that's going to be our sample data, so that we can get a bit more of a, an idea of what this is actually going to look like when it's sent. There's a red squiggly line there, I'm not sure why. So here's our card, and this is what it's going to look like in Teams. Now I'm going to put a text block, so I'm just going to, I'm going to drag a text block up to the top there, and I'm going to put in the text. So what we're seeing on the screen now, you can see I've just added a text block onto the screen. That's the card structure tree view almost. And then these are the properties. Now I don't necessarily need to change much. I don't want it to say new text block. I'm going to say champions support request, right? So this is when somebody out there in the community is asking for help. They've selected you or me. The font type, we'll leave that as it is. The size we'll do large, that's good. and then we'll change the weight to be bolder. Now, if you change the theme, you can start to see what this is going to look like. Okay, so we can say that we want the color to be attention. Wow, that's cool. So that draws your attention, right? Brilliant. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to drag in a container. And this container is going to have the information that we need here. So the first thing we're going to do is let the champ know what is this thing that's just popped up in Teams chat. You can say hi there, and we know the name of the person, so I'm just going to put in their champ name, right? Because we'll replace that in Power Automate in a sec. This is a notification that someone in the community is asking for your help. Details follow. That's quite nice, isn't it? So what we'll do is we'll add in a column set below that, and a column set is a bit like a table. So if I click this button here twice, I've added 2 cells. Now the cell on the left is going to be the title. So this is going to be the assistance required. Assistance required. Spell it right. And I'm going to add in a text block there. I'm going to bind that to the assistance type. Okay, then I can add in another text block below this guy. Oh, in fact, let's give it that. Let's just add in another column set. I'm sure there are probably better ways of doing this. Again, if you know of them, share with me. I'm learning as much as anybody else. Then we have the details. And in the other cell, we're going to bind that to the help required. Then we can add in another column set. This is going to be who sent it. Requested. Request all. Have a text box. There. Now, that's probably enough for now. Let's start there. Well, let's leave it there for now. So this is what our adaptive card will look like when it's sent from our flow to the champ. Now this kind of blends in, doesn't it? So let's make that, instead of it being there, let's give it the accent color. That's better. We'll do that for all of our keys. Wonderful. So now, if I'm the champ, I receive that. I can go off and help. Now the bit that we're really interested in is this payload here. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste that into my notepad file for a minute. So remember that URL. This is where you want to go to design your adaptive card. So let's go back into Teams, and what we're going to do is we're going to send, so use the Teams connector because we're sending a chat message. And what we want to do is post an adaptive card in a chat or a channel. Can we do it? That's interesting. That's really interesting because the action I want, is there. Post a choice of options as the flow bar. No. Oh, I clicked that. Interesting, doesn't look like this is available in Database for Teams. Post an adaptive card in chat. Okay, well let's use that one. That's the one that I think we're going to need to use. Post as the flowbot. Post in chat with flowbot. The recipient, wonderful. Now, we need to know who we're sending this to, and we're going to send that from Power Apps. So I think actually, let's quickly start again. I've got a funny feeling that we can replace the Power Apps with the v2, yeah. So quick tip for you, the v2 version, the trigger, allows us to pass in inputs. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the champ ID, we need the assistance type, and we need the assistance details, assistance, and we need to know the requester. Then what we're going to need to do is use Azure AD. We want to get some details about the profiles. So we need to get the user. Hopefully this works. Not sure if this is permitted in my DLP policies, but we'll soon find out. And if there are issues, I will pause the video again. In fact, we'll pause it anyway while this is waiting to do its thing. Okay, so there wasn't much of a delay. I didn't have to do anything. I was just being impatient, as I have been consistently in this this process. But essentially, the first thing we want to do with this is look up the champ ID, because we need to get their email address. Then we want to send an adaptive card to the to the champ. So we've got post adaptive card in chat or channel. We're posting it as the flow bot, which is fine, and we're going to post it as a chat with the flow bot. We could literally just put this in a channel if we wanted to. If the champs had a channel that they were focusing, but because this person is, this request is a direct request to a champion, I think we can continue with this kind of implementation. Right, so we've got the recipient's email. That's going to be the champ's email. We then need the adaptive card JSON. So we'll copy Control-A, Control-C, go back to Teams, and we'll pop that in here. Now, the bits that we need to change. As we go down, you can remember as we were designing the card, I put in champ name here. That's brilliant. Now I can easily identify that I don't want that. I want to put in the display name of the champ. Okay, the first name, that would be really nice. Let's add the first name. So you can see now it should say, hi there, Steve. Now we've got the assistance type. We're going to take that out, and we're going to get that from Power Apps. So let's look at the assistance type. Did that go in correctly? Yes, it did. Wonderful. Then we have the details. What did the user, what are they asking for assistance with? And again, we're taking that from Power Apps. Then the last piece of information is who sent it, and that's going to be the requester. Now we will be able to pass that information from Power Apps. So we don't need to look them up because we already know that we already know who they are from Power Apps. So we're going to put in requester. So let's save that. Now, the moment of truth is once this is saved, we go back into our app and we wire that button, the button that we created. We wire that up to our button. So we're going to go back into Champions Community Hall of Fame. Let's open that up. Again, this is me being impatient. I'll probably pause the video if it doesn't load in a second. Oh, no, there we go. Most impatient person in the world. Okay, so let's select me. There we go, look at that, wonderful. So we have, let's zoom in. Now we have some tidying up to do here, look at this. This is messy. So we have the button, let's rename that. So btn send request. We have a label that I've copied. So that's LBL assistance details. Text box is going to be the details. TXT details. Label. That is. Another label. Two more things to tidy up, and then we can steam into this. And hopefully that will be the end of the video, and you can go off and build your own version of this. I hope it's been of use to you. It's been fun for me to do this whilst whilst building a proof of concept. It's nice to feel I've not been doing it alone. Champ bio. Okay, so we have a rectangle, we have an icon. We should rename that really. Rename SEO close panel. Right, so the button. Let's look at it on select property now. If you've wired up a button before, I keep saying wired up. If you've used a button before, then the on select property is the one that triggers when the button is clicked. Now what we need to do is go in and associate a flow with our button. So we're going to do power automate. Now hopefully it will list our flow. There we are, look, send champ assistance request. Amazing. So let's add that. So now that's associated with the button, hopefully. Look at that. Right, so now we have the name of the flow, and then .run is the function that's going to be called. Now the first thing we need is the champ ID. Now the champ ID is the record that we have selected, so that's going to be this item.id. The next is the assistance type. Now that's taken from the combo box. So that's combo box dot selected dot result. Is there any more dots? No, there we go. So that will take the text of the, whatever's been selected. The next thing is the details. So that's going to be txt details. That's our text box. Now one of the things I love about Power Apps, one of the many things I love about Power Apps actually, is that, there we go. No, it's not completely happy. Oh, the requester. Now that's going to be the user of the app, and we're going to get their email address. Right. So one of the things I love about Power Apps is as you're writing code, so as I'm writing it here, and I'm saying, right, take whatever's been selected in this combo box. You can see it's underlined and highlighted the text in green, but it's also done that on the UI so that I know when I'm looking at my code, I know exactly what element of the page the code relates to, which is wonderful. So let's test it. Let's see what happens. One thing we want to do here, the value, we want to get rid of that. We want it to be blank. So let's save it first, because I always forget to do that. And if this works, then in theory, we are good. So I'm going to need hands-on assistance. This is for Teams. All right, I'm just going to put any old text in here. Having issues recording meetings and would appreciate some assistance. Now the line height of this text is ghastly. I don't know if we can change it. Font size. We must be able to change that. Come on. Really? That's terrible. Okay, let's continue. So when I click this button, it should trigger the flow. Now, if the flow worked, which it looks like it has because I've just received a chat, then the chat should contain our adaptive card. So let's just save the Power App because we're not coming back to this. We'll publish this. Because if this works, my work here is done and our proof of concept is complete, and I bid you farewell. And if you've watched 3 hours of me doing this, then, you know, well done. And I hope that some elements of this have been of use. And in fact, just before we go, we don't have a title of this. Let's at least put in, you know, a title for our app. Let's give it a fancy logo or something, because if we're finishing, then, you know, let's give ourselves a pat on the back with a fancy logo. So the color can be white, and we'll call this the Hall of Fame. Let's make the text, make it nice and big, and we'll make it semi-bold. Alignment. Okay, let's move that over. Add in. Let's see if we can just pop an icon in that looks anything remarkably like what would be considered a good logo for our app. If we have things like trophies, or let's see what we've got. This is our Hall of Fame. Oh, I like the lightning bolt. We've got a ribbon. We're close. Let's use that ribbon, because that looks like a champion's badge, right? So there we go. Let's preview that. Oh, that looks all right. I'm quite happy with that. Hopefully you are, and if you are, share in the comments. And what I'll do, I'll export this solution and share it on GitHub. So you know, if you did space out when I was doing this, then, you know, which is more than likely, at least you've got a copy. Right. So let's have a look at our chat. Power Automate Center card. Look at that. Champion support request. Hands-on required. Hands-on assistance. Hi there, Steve. The one thing we could have done in the flow was, you know, change that so that it's not showing my email address, and that's pretty straightforward. But the point being is that really quickly we've added in a button, designed an adaptive card, and we've got all that stuff being sent directly to the champion saying, hi there, Steve, somebody needs help. Surprisingly, it's yourself. I need help. And yeah, there we go. So wrap up of the entire solution. 2 hours ago, we built a bot, and the bot allows us to register Power Apps champions, right? So if I want to become a champion, then I can register. We built a Power App. You know, we took all of that information, we stored that in database for Teams. Then we put together a really nice looking Power App that works really well. You know, we can see all of our champions, and we can you know, we can contact them directly, which is really powerful. We can do that using adaptive cards. Can you attend the next session? Now, I'm not sure what's going on with the UI. I do have a small device that could most likely is related to that. Click the send button. Do we get an adaptive card? Look at that. We do. Amazing. Can you attend the next session? Amazing. Brilliant. Thank you very much for watching these videos. I hope they've been of use to you. And yeah, feel free to get in touch if you need anything.